Okay. Hey guys, welcome to another stream with me, Brett the Hitman, and joining me in the stream is Combat Arthur and combat veteran James A. Bretney, whom I've done a couple of videos on. How you doing, James?
Hitman, I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome. Washington is nice and sunny. Not, in fact, yeah, it's actually pretty unusual. I mean, we got clouds, but there's visible sunlight.
Fantabulous. As long as you get to see the sun.
Yeah. Well, you'll dig this because actually the area of Washington I live in, we got a joint Army Air Force base, Lewis McChord. A lot of troops in the area.
Yeah. God bless them.
Yes, they do. They do good work. Yeah. So, if you don't mind, how about you tell people listening a little bit about yourself? And I understand that being that you were in the military, there's NDAs, like things that you're not legally able to speak about.
Sure.
So just tell us what you can and to the best of your ability.
Well, thank you, Britt, for having me on the show. My name again is James Bretney. I am a comic book artist. I spent a little bit of time in Hollywood. I'm also an Iraq War veteran. I spent 9 years of active duty. 6 of those years were in combat. 5 of those years were with the Special Operations Command. My deployments include Kurdistan in 2003, Mosul in 2004, and Baghdad in 2005. So that's where a lot of my military experience comes, and that's where a lot of where I go back to creatively in terms of digging material out. I've got several titles out: Kursk, Blaze of Glory, Call Me Robby. I did put some graphics to a poem that a friend of mine wrote. I'm working on a religious book right now.
Interesting. I think you're also working on another one called it's about the Spanish Civil War. What was it? Red Terror, I believe.
Yes, Red Terror is set in the Spanish Civil War. It discusses the martyrdom of the Damiel martyrs in Damiel, Spain, around July 1936. 200 militiamen dragged 32 priests and clerics out of bed, harassed them, and killed 26 of them.
That's stuff they don't teach us in history class. And when it comes to history class, it's usually Civil War, not World War II, Nazis bad, and that's it.
Yeah, there's a lot to be desired.
Yeah. But then again, that's what you get with public school.
Well, hopefully, programs like this, the stuff that you're doing, and the work of other patriots out there will reverse the culture. And I really applaud what you're doing.
Really that's what I appreciate the internet for. It's really decentralized information, and now there's like you got access to more information than ever. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Like as far as the comics go, like as how much of it is any of it like autobiographical? Like because that was sort of vibes I got reading Call Me Robby and Blaze of Glory.
Blaze of Glory was based on the public domain work of Richard Kilblain. He wrote stories. Well, first off, I wanted to make a movie about Keith Maupin. Keith Maupin was captured and killed in Iraq. And parents blocked me. They were threatening litigation. So I turned to Rich Kilblain, and he said, "Why don't you do a story about James McCormick?" And so I basically his biography. I tried not to be too personal, but with Call Me Robby, that was in 2012. I just left Hollywood, and I wrote something, and I wrote something with like the intention of doing like a horror aspect, because horror is not really my favorite thing, but I know it's really popular with kids. So I said, I'm going to do a horror book, and it really kind of disturbed me. So I bounced it off my teacher, Steve Martin, in film school, and he loved it. And so I just made a comic book out of it.
Really? That's cool. In fact, yeah, when I was reading Call Me Robbie, like that was sort of the impression I got, especially with the art. Don't want to like the art's very impressionistic, like almost Vincent Van Gogh esque.
Well, I usually like to do realism, but like a couple of my main artists, my main collaborators who I work with, they kind of dropped off and they were busy. So I reached out to this Ukrainian artist, Maria Nikolaeva, and I really liked her art because her art was really in your face. And it was very abstract. And you're right, there's elements of cubism and Picasso, and but it took me a long time to get used to her art style, but it really worked for the book, and she was right, and I was wrong.
Yeah, because yeah, don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't read it yet, but reading it, it's a trip through. Is it accurate to say a troubled person's psyche?
Yeah, he's my best friend. He's the guy that I work with, and the guy that I reconnected with after I got out of the military. He was telling me his stories, and our friendship kind of fell apart after that.
Well, that's something I can relate to, I think. But yeah, yeah, but with Blaze of Glory, like another thing was kind of I was taken aback by as far as the art went was just how uncompromising it was when it came to portraying how combat is out there. Like there was a kind of aesthetic ugliness to it, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I mean, like that was like it sort of went out of its way to be very visceral, very graphic. It did nothing to make it look to make war look cool, because I've noticed that even with a lot of like movies, like and even in the video games, like they tend to make violence try to look cool.
Yeah, it certainly is a marketing tactic for a young man is to get them to think it's cool. It's not been my life experience.
Yeah. But yeah, that was something I kind of appreciate about Blaze of Glory was just how gritty and realistic it was. Like it did not look pretty at all.
No, it wasn't pretty when I went over there.
Mm.
The first time I went in an area that was not affected by the invasion, but as I went further south, and this was years after we invaded, still Reconstruction was still crawling at a small pace, and you know, when you see a dead body, it changes you.
Yeah, like I can remember like when the Iraq War was going on, I was still in middle school and I was and well, I was kind of naive. I was still naive enough to and young enough to remember, well, to believe the whole weapons of mass destruction spiel,
Mm-hmm.
which we all know turned out to be completely false.
Well, I mean, I did come in contact with mustard gas. That happened.
Okay, maybe not completely false.
Um, it's just, were they building nukes? No. Would they? I don't know. It's so much. The truth isn't really. They don't really tell you the truth. They don't tell the soldiers the truth. They don't tell the people at home the truth. I mean, now the historians are trying to get at the truth, but I mean, they pay the historians to paint the truth differently. All I can tell you is what happened to me when I was over there. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. Still though, I mean, I appreciate what they did for us because like our troops, even if they go into a war that's probably not a good idea, they're still out there protecting us, protecting our freedoms, and they deserve our respect for that much.
I have about 9 people in my life that either died or committed suicide.
Yeah, like I've always been a troop supporter because my uncle was a veteran in the Marines back in Desert Storm. I got a friend of mine. He was in the Army back in Vietnam. I got tons of friends who are veterans I've known from work and in my personal life. So yeah.
Well, they've been my heroes when I grew up. I always looked up to the Vietnam vets.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Def. Like I don't think anyone would disagree that no one got a rawer deal than the Vietnam vets.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to go off the deep end here, but I mean there are definitely parallels. The Bay of Tonkin Resolution, the UN 1441,
Mhm.
the lies that were told to the American people, the lies that they told us over there. Um, I don't know. Something just wasn't right about it. When we came in and we liberated, the part that I went into Iraq, they really wanted us there. They welcomed us in with, I mean, when we came off the plane, there were tears in their eyes, and they wanted us there. And then when we liberated Baghdad, I just remember that day like it was like the 4th of July. Everybody was just happy. Um, but as the war went on after mission accomplished, just, things didn't add up.
Hmm. Yeah. Changing gears, as far as far as like say with like Red Terror and Call Me Robbie, well, maybe not Call Me Robbie, but with Red Terror, how did you come across the story for Red Terror?
I felt that I wasn't really using my art to glorify Jesus Christ, and so I wanted to make things conspicuous, and I wanted to make something that highlighted the persecution of Christians. I think that you and I were both disturbed by the violence that ISIS created against Christians.
I think most people were, even if they weren't Christian. Like, I don't think it. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who'd be down with beheading innocent people and then recording it.
We saw that during the Iraq War too. Um,
I'll take your word for that.
um, but I mean, the persecution of Christians in this country. I mean, look what they did to that woman who had a religious objection to gay marriage. Um, and look what I mean, in Texas alone, there have been 7 teachers that have been fired for making anti-Muslim statements. That I mean, you can put Jesus Christ in a jar of piss.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, and I mean, I grew up in this stuff. I grew up in this. My dad's a pastor, so I wouldn't be I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel like a strong reaction to it, I mean, I don't. I'm not exactly down with them taking God out of the culture when it's. I mean, whether you, it's kind of hard to deny it. Christianity is sort of like, whether you want to admit it or not, it's kind of in the DNA of the West. You don't get the West without it.
That's true. That's very true. Um, it's the author George Weigel in his autobiography of Pope John Paul II who made the point that the whole word the whole word culture comes from the word cult, which is religion, and civilizations are based on religion. The West is based on the Christian religion.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of goes without saying. I mean, like it even has the historical basis to back it up. Like even if you're not Christian yourself, I mean, just to deny the history of it's just being that's just flies. Like I said, it just flies in the face of reality.
When I went to Iraq, and I was one of these guys that felt that we had to go. I was, influenced by the ideas of Paul Berman, Natan Sharansky, Raphael Fatai, that there wasn't a big, well, not so much Fatai, but there wasn't a big difference between Islam and Christianity, and that Muslims would want to become Christians, and not Christians, but they would want Western style democracy. You can't have Western style democracy without Christianity. I mean, say you and I disagree on whether or not stop signs should be painted red. I think they should be painted pink. Well, in certain religions, uh, it's okay to lie. It's okay, if you don't belong to my sect, then I look down on you as a dog. You're not a real human being. Those
Yeah,
are things
yeah.
that are.
I'm familiar with with that part of Islam, taqiyya. It's something that I'm not sure if everyone else knows about. I mean, like I'm not gonna throw every Muslim under the bus and say they all do it. But I'm just saying it's in the Quran, guys. You can find it.
I don't want this to be an anti-Muslim podcast, but I'm just saying that my own life experience does not confirm the idea of religious plurality. There is a difference. Not all religions are the same. As a matter of fact, all religions are not the same for good reason, and not all of them are true, and not all of them should be regarded as valid under the law. That's just how I believe as a Christian.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Besides Kursk Red Terror, and Calling Robby and Blaze of Glory, do you have any other books that are under your belt?
I was working with the Solzhenitsyn in the state about adapting Gulag Archipelago, but that project's kind of up in the air. I was working on maybe taking the story of the lost cosmonaut. Um, there's a or the story of Saint Stanislav, or the story of Eva Stein. Those are things that interest me. Um,
Yeah.
Particularly, I'm very interested in World War II, because my grandfather was he fought through both my grandfathers fought through World War II.
Yes.
When I was born in '73. That was less than 30 years ago that war ended. So I mean, that stuff was stuff that I saw in the library, and it was just I just thought that I hate to say that anti-war books. There's no such thing as an anti-war book, because even anti-war books still glorify war. They just can't help it. But I really was fascinated by that war.
Yeah, I've kind of actually noticed that there's sort of a running theme in your work that you sort of don't go for the typical comic book sort of genres like superheroes or science fiction. Like your work tends more towards historical fiction, or what's the best way of putting it? Like or just just war fiction, if that's the best way of putting it.
I think that I grew up as a history major. I majored in history in college. I was the quickest way out of the University of Arizona. Um, but I think that we don't celebrate our own culture in the West. We don't know our own culture. I'll give you an example. I was 2005. I was in Egypt, and we were a part of a peacekeeping contingent, and we're around 11 different contingents from New Zealand, Norway, Italy. They were all there on this base, and they were all kind of sharing their culture with us. And we Americans, we didn't really have anything to share. And I think that was a cultural weakness. I hope that my children and your children, that they'll know their culture, and they'll be able to share that and be proud of their culture and share it with others.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's good. I mean, but I mean, it's kind of interesting because, like I said, like most like comic books, they tend to head towards science fiction. Fiction, the stuff you do is it's a breath of fresh air. Sure.
I appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, like was doing this in comic book form like your first impulse, or does this something you kind of fell into?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. It was something I fell into after I got back from the war. I said, "Man, I want to do something with art. I want to go to Hollywood." And I went to Hollywood. I did I did some good things out there, but it wasn't a good place for me. So I left, and I said, "Dang, I still want to do something creative." So I started. I knew I could storyboard, and I knew I was a good artist. So I started, but my art really at the time wasn't that good. So I had to hire some artists until my art got better. And now it's just okay. But um, it's but I love comics. I wouldn't go back to. I can't say I wouldn't go back. 'Cause I do like working with actors, but I love comics. Comics are going to be with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
Always going.
I've been reading comic books since I was a kid.
Me
Like
too.
when I was 10 years old, like my uncle, he would send me and my brother like a box full of Spider-Man comic books like every other month.
Oh, spoiled, spoiled.
I, we ended up wrecking several of them just because just because continued use and all that.
No, it's good. That's real good.
But yeah, I mean,
It helps.
but yeah, I've actually got like a modest collection over on my shelf right over there. There, haven't had to, it's just haven't made time or had the money to buy comic books lately, but it's coming along.
Well, I just do want to let your viewers know that within the next, probably in the next 30 days, I'm going to be starting my own Kickstarter. I'm going to start going to Comic Cons. The whole purpose of the Comic Con is, excuse me, the Kickstarter is to build up a shelf of merchandise. I'm going to have T-shirts. I'm going to have mugs. I'm going to have stickers, all sorts of stuff. But I'm also going to have comics. I'll have Blaze of Glory available for sale. I'm going to have Kursk.
Yes, in fact, I recently saw you unbox. Looks like a that's like the what I'm assuming were the trade paperbacks for it.
Yeah, they're gonna have the paperbacks, but I'm also gonna have the hardcover books too, the big ones,
Yeah.
like the completed story.
Nice. And I assume they came with that new comic smell too.
Yes, yes, of course. There's a lot involved in making comics. You got to pick the paper, you got to pick the dimensions, make sure everything is
Yeah.
tippity top.
Yeah, in fact, like I've been actually paying attention to the online comic book community, especially on YouTube, and like I've seen like this pushback, like against sort of like the narratives we've been getting like out of Marvel and DC, which I don't want to go into because I do want to keep this as politically neutral as possible. But I've also seen like there's some real success stories coming out of these indie creators who are just pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. They're finding an audience it's online, like people who are genuinely interested in their work. Like two works I can point to, like one is by guys I know personally, Rags, which is also by a couple of combat veterans, which I know you'll appreciate. It's about the story of this dishonorably discharged Marine named Regina, who's kind of finds herself in, I think, a zombie apocalypse in the middle of California. And from what I hear, it's sort of like it's kind of like half drama, half joke, complete with satire on California gun laws. It's like I've read the first issue. It's great stuff.
Well, that's great. I mean, I think the whole zombie genre speaks to the alienation science fiction of the 50s when leftists came back from the Second World War. And when you come back from a war as a veteran, reintegrating, gosh, I'm still trying to reintegrate. I've been back for over 20
Oh
years.
yeah, in fact, that was also another thing I forgot to mention. Like Rags also deals with like PTSD as well, the vets experience. Like this is like it's something that unless you know what you're looking for, you're not gonna spot it because I didn't catch it my first read through.
Oh, I have to check it out. Sounds like a great book.
Yeah, and the other one I can point to is a Jawbreakers, which is by a guy named Diversity in Comics. He's also a vet, Marine Corps. He's also been working with a couple comic pros, John Mallon, who was an artist for X-Men, and a colorist, who's got a lot of credits who's got quite a few credits on DC and Marvel, named Brett R. Smith. He's not me, just so in case you're wondering. He's not me, guys. Because Because if you think if I was doing work for Marvel and DC, I'd be living here. But yeah, but yeah, Jawbreakers. They did like an Indiegogo campaign. It's been showing a lot of promise, and it's sort of like a take on superheroes, but and it's something I'm very interested in. And like I said, like I'm just impressed by the success stories we're seeing with creators who are just like just putting the just saying, hey, we can find an audience out here. We don't need the big guys. We can basically make our own books.
Comics is a $1 billion industry.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh, it is.
80,
It's
80% of that is DC and Marvel. That still leaves, gosh, 250 million out up for grabs.
yeah.
So,
I think that gets split between. I think at least a half, like a good half of that gets split between like Dark Horse and Image, with the rest being chomped up by the indies.
yep, yep. They say that all you need is 1,000 true fans, and you can make a living. That's my
Yeah,
goal is to find 1,000 true fans of my books,
yeah,
so I can
like
make a living.
yeah. That's the. I think that's the dream every creator's got.
Including you. You're a creator. You're doing this is art too. What you're doing.
I don't. I don't know if I'd call making videos about Werewolf the Apocalypse art, but I appreciate it anyway.
Oh, it's true, and I appreciate what you do. I mean, you bringing my art to other people. That that means so much to me. That really does. It really, really does.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess if you had like anything you were gonna tell people to get in, if they wanted to get into comic books, like what would you tell them?
Um, there's some good advice about let's see that I got from this guy who said about Kickstarter campaign. He said, take the time to write your story, develop your story. Having a good story is always the beginning, and then finding an artist that or you yourself drawing. Um, I drew comics, and when I was in high school, I think it's important to that people take their dreams seriously. I think that you should involve as many people as you can, your friends, your family, tell everybody about it. There's also places where you can put your art out there to get evaluation, like DeviantArt's a good place. I was on Tapastic. I don't think that Tapastic was a good venue for me, but I heard that Webtoons and SmackGs are good. But develop a following. You can use your social media accounts to develop your art, and the better. There's always a tipping point. Like there's like when I was in art school, there's a certain number of hours, and then all of a sudden, whatever it is I was working on stopped being gibberish, and then it just started to look cool. And so, make the commitment to it, and it'll pay off. It's paid off for me. It's made me. That just basically kept me out of prison. I'll be honest with you. I was drinking a lot. I was getting in trouble with the law when I came back from Iraq, but getting involved in art, I was able to stop drinking as much and get away from the law. So, but definitely pursue your art. Definitely pursue what you're passionate about. There's not enough passion in America. There's not enough passion in the world. So definitely pursue it. See where it goes. It's God. It's really God that's guiding you. People forget that God is inside of us. God talks to us, and God talks to us through the things that we like. That's all.
That that is so true. That's things. Those are things my dad taught me. I mean, growing up. Yeah, and it was also like another thing I got from like a friend of mine who's also been publishing his own book. He said that when you're a comic book creator, you're basically a lifelong gambler.
I don't know. I've been doing it since 2012. Started Kursk coming online. We started putting it on Comixology. We thought that was going to pay out. It didn't. Um, it's but it's still it's stuff that we did together and we learned, and we're getting better.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's encouraging. Jimbo, do you have any recommendations where people can find your work?
I got a website. I do have a website. I do. I'm also on Facebook as James A Bretney Presents. I'm on Twitter, but I don't want. I mean, I got in trouble for Twitter, but they can find me through you, Brett. That if they want to find me, they go through you.
That's true. That's true. Like I prob
good people out there, and there's bad people, and I trust Brett to give me the good people.
Hey, you could. This place is very trustworthy, guys.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Yeah, I'm listening.
Yep. Yep.
I'm really. I want to say this before I go. I want to say I was impressed with your manifesto. I think that if culture means like, I used to be a Republican. I'm not sure that I'm a Republican anymore, or conservative. I don't know what that means anymore. Basically, I'm a Christian. All right. And you said, you know, if we really want good art, we have to stop, you know, patronizing the Illuminati, and we have to start creating and patronizing Christian artists. And that part of the a Christ-centered civilization, the Christ-centered art movement. I mean, that's something I'm passionate about, and I think that you're the ones that articulated it the best. That was the fall of last year, and you deserve credit for that.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I never thought I'd be a guy who come up with a manifesto.
It was a good video. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I'll be sure to hit all the important links in the description for this. So seriously, guys, you can find James's channel. I'll put that link will be in the description. He's a good guy. And you should really check out his work if you want to find some alternatives to like superheroes and science fiction and whatnot.
Thank you, Brett, for having me.
Yep. Cheers, man.